Aloha, everybody. I'm Eva Andrade. I am your host of today's show, the Triple Ed podcast, Faith and Family First. If there's anything we've learned from all of the COVID lockdowns and restrictions, it's that what you know today is going to be different tomorrow. So let's chat about that. Well, Jim, welcome to the show today.
Well, thank you.
You're sitting way too close to me. I don't know if you have COVID. Do you have COVID? Have you been
I'm
tested?
immune from COVID.
Have
Jesus
you
loves
been
me.
tested?
Many times.
Isn't it so interesting that we thought by the time we got to the airing of this show that we wouldn't be having this kind of discussion anymore? But every day we're hearing more and more now about, oh no, the COVID cases are rising. Once again, the CDC are changing numbers. We don't know what is or what isn't. There's just so much craziness that regular people out in the community have no idea what's going on. I don't know what's going on. Do you know what's going on?
Well, what I know is you have to get your news from many sources, because if you only get it from one source, it's probably not true.
Well, we appreciate those that are getting their news from this source, which is 94.9 KESU radio in Kauai or 1040 AM K-Light radio right here in Oahu, or the viewers that are watching us on YouTube. So we're glad that you come
Or
to us
Spotify.
for some of this. So, Jim, I want to get your thoughts on a tweet that I saw recently that I thought was a really interesting way to start our discussion. So let's take a look at that tweet. So for those listening, it's a tweet by the guy, by the guy. I don't know.
You don't know he's a
I
guy.
don't know. I apologize, or I'm sorry, I did it again. Mark Tidsworth. And he says in this tweet, he says, I got a chuckle when hearing Christians on the right and left express fears that Christianity will be harmed in a big way due to governmental policies they see as unfavorable. Our faith rests on the power of God, not the favor of powers and principalities.
So he starts as throwing up a huge, what's called straw man, which means he's protecting a non-existent problem. His straw man is that people that are Christians on the right and the left actually have fear that Christianity will be harmed. I've never heard anybody say Christianity was going to be harmed.
Well,
I've heard them say that the government not allowing Christians to live their faith will harm those Christians, but not Christianity. So, Mr. Tidsworth, your little tweet is worth a tid.
Oh, you're just so bad. Well, I think that one of the interesting points, though, in this tweet that I found interesting is he is addressing Christians on both the right and the left. And you and I know this, that there are Christians on both sides of the issue of the lockdowns and the restrictions and governmental powers. I mean, I saw different, even churches taking different positions on the lockdowns and protecting of people in the community and all of that. So I think that people sitting, you know, you and I, well, you laugh at me because I always talk about the bips and the bops. So for those of you that don't know, I call bips, those are the butts inside the pew, and the bops are the butts outside the pew, right? So you're going to be speaking most of the time as a pastor, you're going to be speaking to the bips. These are the butts that are inside the pew. You're going to be...
Except for the live streaming.
Well, I thought that was a positive during the lockdown, is that more people had access
Could
to
stumble
the gospel.
upon Colo TV
right.
and watch, Waxer or Hibbs or whoever's on.
Yeah, and did I think
JD.
that was like, like the only way, like churches should be completely shut down and people should be getting it online? Of course not. I think that the Bible is very, very clear that we get built, we get enriched, we get blessed by people in our congregation. So to go and fellowship one with another is an important thing.
In fact, today, because I'm an attorney, I sit on the board of the collection law section of the Hawaii State Bar, and we had a board meeting. And we have always done these really, really well done seminars for lawyers, except for the last couple of years, they've pretty much all been on Zoom. So we had a board meeting today, and the question came up, should we do it on Zoom even though we can meet in person? And I was like, if we can meet in person, we should meet in person. There's a lot of benefits to seeing the people you haven't seen in a while. You can, see old friends. You can talk to lawyers that you have cases with. Yes, we should do it in person.
Well, and I will say to that as well that I'm on a couple of boards that we have some neighbor island people that are part of the boards that have not been able to attend the meetings before because they couldn't fly in and out all the time. So what we've begun to do is do a lot of hybrid meetings.
And
where
that's fine too.
Yeah. So if we encourage you strongly to show up to the meetings in person, or if you absolutely can't, but it is different, to have somebody's face on the screen and not in the room with you. It does,
Well, it's
it does
not
make a
somebody's.
difference.
It's like, what was that? Hollywood Squares.
Well, and it is hilarious, but I know that everybody listening and watching, they've been part of these meetings where they're like, they see the person's camera goes on and off, and then you have the person that forgets the camera's on and they're painting their nails or they're playing with their dog or whatever.
Worse.
Oh, well, yeah.
We saw things on the news.
We saw things that
But I'm going to
should
get
never
back
wanna
to
see.
Mr. Tidsworth.
Okay.
So, aside from the straw man of Christianity being harmed, which nobody believes, what he's missing is the power of God is true. And the power of God will take care of God's people. But history shows, and I like to start with the 740 years the Israelites were under the Egyptian pharaohs, life can be really bad because of what the government does to the Christians.
Well, here's my issue with your comment on his comment. And I have this problem with all tweets. What he put in these few sentences may not necessarily be what the message he was trying to portray. We don't know. We don't know. You're assuming what he was trying to put.
He volunteered that. He gets to live and die by it.
And I have a problem with this. I have a problem with people who spend all of their time tweeting all day with one or two sentences, and they're doing it just to get likes or follows or shares or whatever, and there is no real conversation anymore. Do you know that part of the things that we began to see as we were growing up, right, is that there was a big emphasis on handwriting, right? I mean, we had handwriting in school as
we practiced and got graded on it. Yeah, of course.
I had custody of my grandson, and he had no idea how to write his name in cursive. No idea. Was never taught. My point is
like
that
20 years old.
He's 19. Yes, he never had cursive in school. Never learned that. But everything today is being taught to them in bite-sized pieces. Everything is. You want to eat, you throw in your microwave oven. You throw in
That's true. Do you know that I saw a news story that said some history professor did a survey of history teachers in like high schools in some broad area of the country. And the question was, where are your students learning their history? And it was from video games. I guess there's a lot of video games that are in historical settings, like Vikings or whatever. That's where the kids today are actually, they think they're learning real history, but it's just the storyline of a game.
I'll see if I can find it, but I also read, it was either Gallup or it was one of the polling companies actually said that a lot of our millennial generation and Gen X are getting their news from Twitter and Facebook.
No, this was, I said history.
Yeah, but
learning history.
Well, yes, you're right. I mean, it's not history, but news is it becomes history.
That's true.
And so if somebody is getting false information off, and what's really interesting, if you really think about it, right, on Facebook or Twitter or all of these social networking, you're going to build people that tend to agree with you. So what you're going to see on the posts are things that you tend to agree with. So if somebody is getting their news from wrong sources, then their friends are probably getting it from that same source, and they're going to retweet all of this stuff. And I know that that's part of what we're having to deal with today is I've seen it. I've seen people, strong Christians going back to, this.
Tidsy.
I hope this person watches this show and comes back. We
invite
Mark, you to come and talk to us on the show. But I think that one of the things we're having to deal with is this split between Christians because of where they're getting their news. And not only where they're getting their news, what they're getting from the pulpit and what they're getting, it's very
There was some proverb, or not a biblical proverb, but I forget where I heard it, but the question was posed, if a man has two dogs on leashes and they're pulling the man in opposite directions, which direction will he go? Do you know the answer?
No.
He will go in the direction of the stronger dog.
That makes sense.
So it applies here because what's the strength of your news sources? The stronger news source that you spend more time on is going to pull you in the direction. And hopefully it's honest and true news, not non-honest and non-true news.
Well,
also known as fake news in some circles.
It makes me laugh, though, because there are some news organizations that spend a lot of time just talking bad about the other news one. You know,
Correct.
It's like, don't listen to
Greg
them. Because
it's very funny because he picks on Stelter every night.
Well, but I think that this is the stuff that and I'm talking about just, there is a group of people, especially here in Hawaii, because the way we look at each other is different than the way mainland people treat each other. We do try to treat
Southern
people with
people
respect.
are nice.
Well, that's
too.
true. I heard that when you go to the South, if somebody goes, "How y'all doing?" you don't want to ask somebody that because they will tell you.
It's like Germans.
But in Hawaii, it's like we do have a certain way of treating people. So we do want to treat people with respect.
We always do anyway. We're called to love everybody so that they have an interest in getting into the kingdom of heaven.
Exactly. And as Christians, because you and I make it clear all the time that we do what we do because Christ calls us to do that. We try to be like him in all that we do. We want to sound like him. We want people who hang around us, even if we're not using words, to say there is something about that person that becomes attractive. We want to become just like them. And
correct.
So even in cases of the COVID lockdowns and all the craziness that's going on, we just remind people to be Christian in action and in attitude. But it's hard to do when all of this information keeps changing. Now, so as you know, because you testified against one of the bills in the Capitol this year, that
I testified in favor of improving it.
Okay, right. So you weren't. Let's make clear, because people think that you're always down at the Capitol with your Jim Hochberg crazy eyes, and you're waving anger.
Do I have crazy eyes?
Crazy eyes. Yes, I'm going to find a clip to that song, and we're going to play Crazy Eyes. Yeah, you're just kind of nuts, and you're down there always angry.
I'm passionate.
But that's not true. You and I have been doing this long enough that we've also tried very hard to be reasonable down at the Capitol, and so
we have a friend named Bart that disagrees with us on everything down there. And he said he likes us.
I know. I'll never forget that. He just said, "I'm trying so hard to hate you, and I can't because you're nice." And I love that. What that means is I'm doing a good job representing Christ Jesus. So, but anyway, as the governmental powers, and you've made no bones about this. And if you want to know more about it, check out our previous YouTube videos, because Jim and I talked a lot about the governmental powers before, but you knew that there was a problem that needed to be fixed. And when the government decided that they were going to put some bills forward, you actually weighed in and said, here's how we can fix the problem.
To really fix it.
So there was a few bills that were moving around, but the two that we're referring to today one is HB 2120. The current version is SD2. You didn't weigh in on that one, but I know the Grassroots Institute weighed in on that one a lot.
This bill did not address my concern. My concern is in the expiration of the governor's powers.
Right, and that was in Senate Bill 3089, current version.
And the other reason I didn't care about this 2120, House Bill 2120, basically they were trying to add the Green New Deal into the reason the governor can shut down the state. They threw environmental in everywhere, and it makes no sense. Yeah,
and the only reason I'm bringing it up now is because we had several people in our community that were asking why we didn't weigh in on it, because there was some interest in other groups. They were sending out alerts or whatever.
And that's the beauty of our system.
That's right.
We have our own opinions.
That's right.
And I won't tell you what my friend Sandy says about opinions.
Okay. So the other bill, though, however, you did weigh in on, and this one, so I'm looking right now, and I will put the links in YouTube. So those of you listening on radio, please check us out on YouTube, because not only will you get to see Jim and I in all our glory, you also get to have the links to everything we're talking about.
And can we really quick just say, if you simply go into YouTube and Google Hawaii Family Forum, you're going to see the entire decade's worth of history that Eva's Hawaii Family Forum videos are in there.
Not on YouTube.
Because if you go to youtube.com/Hawaii Family Forum, instead of Googling it or searching, you'll only get I think we got 20 or 30 of these things now. I don't know, however many there are. But this version of what we do is all collected in one spot.
Yes. And you can also watch the videos on Spotify in case, those of you have Spotify, you want to go ahead and sign up for that. And or you can go to our website at hawaiifamilyforum.org. You can see all our art. Okay, but anyway, so the current version of Senate Bill 3089, which is HD2, they changed it several times, which is why there's a House draft too. So,
Correct.
there was a couple in the Senate and then a couple in the House. But basically, the issue that you took with the bill, and so you provided comments. You didn't oppose it outright. You just submitted comments because you felt like they weren't, in the way that the bill was written, they weren't addressing your concern. And your concern is really, you believe it's a constitutional issue that needs to be fixed.
So this whole emergency power statute is Chapter 127, capital A. And what it basically says, it's from 2014 is when they passed it the first time, basically says if the governor or if a mayor of a county believes that they need to exercise emergency power because of some kind of catastrophe in the weather or, that kind of stuff, they have the power to do it for 60 days. And at the 60th day, it automatically terminates. That's basically what the law said. And so March 3rd of 2020, Governor Ige issued his first emergency proclamation on this COVID stuff. And he said in that very first proclamation, we don't have any COVID here, haven't had a single positive, nobody identified with it, nobody's been sick, nobody's died. But the World Health Organization reports that around the world, this is what's going on. So I'm going to lock down Hawaii. So that started his 60 days under Chapter 127A. His 60 days ended on May 4th, 2020. April 25th, 2022, he stopped extending his emergency proclamations for COVID. That doesn't mean he's not going to start again if he wants to later. So all of the fooling around by the legislature in this bill, SB 3089, fails to realize that they should have come to work and stopped him on May 5th, 2020.
And they had a chance. That bill,
They
there
should
was a
have.
bill at that time,
Correct.
but the bill ended up dying.
So,
Yes.
so what they've done in the Senate Draft 2 version, and basically the section of the law is 127A-14, state of emergency. It has A, B, C, and D. D says a state of emergency in a local, that's the county, state of emergency shall terminate automatically 60 days after the issuance of a proclamation of a state of emergency or local state of emergency, respectively. They want to add, unless extended or terminated by a separate or supplementary proclamation of the governor or the mayor. And they want to add, the governor or mayor shall proclaim the termination of the state of emergency or local state of emergency at the earliest possible date that conditions warrant. And then they add, the legislature, by an affirmative vote of 2/3 of both houses, can terminate the state of emergency if they think they should, and that the county council can terminate the mayor's. Okay, well, that's all good, but they totally missed the point. And the point is what happened in the summer of 2020 in federal court and in state court, because I had a federal case and a state case. The state case focused explicitly on this 60 days. And I asked the court, the judge, to rule that everything after May 5th was unlawful, not illegal, but unlawful, which meant that my clients couldn't be punished for the citation they got for violating the COVID limitations, because after May 4th, subsequent proclamations were after the 60 days, they were unlawful. And what the judge said is that when she looks at the whole chapter that the language is in, which is 127A, that she sees that the purpose of this power is to protect the people from whatever the emergency is. And therefore, if the governor's lawyers were arguing he needed to be able to continue protecting the people, her view was that absolute language couldn't be enforced, that he had to be able to keep renewing his 60-day thing. So my suggestion to the legislature was, look, quit tinkering with 127A, because the context is emergency problems. Instead, put the limitation of the 60 days and the legislature's ability to extend it in the Constitution so that the context of this issue for the judge the next time around would be, okay, the Section 1 of Article 1 of the Hawaii Constitution says all political power in this state resides in the people. We could put right after that, any emergency power exercised by any government authority in the state of Hawaii terminates on the 60th day unless the legislature extends it. When the judge would look at that, it wouldn't be the government protecting the people from an emergency. It would be the Constitution protecting the people from the government. That's the context that's required for the judge to have the ability to do what really has been needed for 2 years.
And how that would work in practicum just simply means that if there was an emergency and the 60 days ended, the legislature could decide to extend the emergency.
And if the legislature did not, it ended.
Right. So basically it gives the power to the legislature,
which is
thereby the power of the people.
And the reason that's the better policy is when you run for governor, it's your statewide office. If you've ever gone to visit the governor and you're like not a friend, you haven't had, meetings with him before, you're like a stranger, just a constituent, you're not going to know who you are. If you want to meet your senator, that's about 75,000 constituents for a state senator. If you want to meet your state representative in the House of Representatives, that's about 25,000 people in his district. So you probably shop in a grocery store or a shopping center in your district that you live in, and you've probably been shopping next to your member of the House because the number of people that vote for them is smaller, and therefore they're closer to their voters. So the idea is that the statewide governor guy or the congressman or the senator shouldn't be the ones from the federal level, congressman, senator, shouldn't be the ones controlling us. It should be the ones that are closer to us, that we're more accessible to them, that kind of a thing. So that's what I'm trying to tell them to do. But of course, they're not interested.
Which is a good reminder that our responsibility is to build relationship with our legislators,
Correct.
Our representative and our senator. They should not be a stranger to us. And it is sad to me how many times when I'm talking to people of faith, they have no idea who their representative or senator. They might kind of know because of the signs that go up during an election year. Oh, I think it's so-and-so.
Actually, what they should do, session's going to be over soon. So maybe starting in July of this year, 2022, make an appointment, go meet your House member, your senator, the governor, the lieutenant governor, make an appointment just to talk to them, just to say, hi, I want to start being involved in the government that I own. And I just want to meet you, let you know I live here. These are my concerns. I think, parents should have rights over the curriculum of their students or whatever.
It really does make a difference. And the other thing that I strongly encourage churches to do, every church is in a district. I think that every church should adopt that representative and that senator in that district. And those pastors should be reaching out to those legislators and saying, hey, we're praying for you. Build relationship with the people in the community because it makes a difference. And I have found that even legislators that don't agree with me on issues will sometimes reach out on other issues, knowing that we may not agree on this issue, but we agree on this one. And I think that that's where we begin to take back our state. If we continue the us and them mentality, we are going to get nowhere in this state. And I think it's about time that we erase that line.
The government's not different from the people. And that's the thing. And I use the truck next door example all the time. I look out my living room window. I see across the street my neighbor. He's got this really nice pickup truck. It's not my truck. I've never been in it. I've never gotten a ride, never driven it. I've never changed a tire. I've never washed or waxed it. It's his truck. That's not the way we ought to be viewing our government. It's our government. And if you think about it in terms of when you go to work, your boss needs to know you so that you know how to serve your boss. It's the same thing. Your legislators need to know you so they know how to serve you.
Somebody out there that does design work needs to design a shirt that says, not my truck. And they need to send it to Jim because he does bring that up every single week. Okay, but the point is that we do want people to build relationship with their legislature. I want to go back to something you said earlier when you were reading the bill. So when they talk about 2/3 of the legislature, this all ties in both houses. 2/3. Now, let's remember that there are only 4 Republicans in the House and only 1 in the Senate. So in order to get to that 2/3 count, you need to also have some Democrats that agree in principle to whatever it is that you're asking to get to the 2/3. So what that means is there's a lot of work. Don't I see the Jim Hochberg face going,
I wasn't thinking the Republicans would do anything any more than they ever do.
well, okay, Jim, that's really bad. Okay, the
No, I mean, the Democrats run this state, so the 2/3 are going to be Democrats.
well, I was going to say that bill passes as is with 2/3. Okay, it's not.
Well, there's 51 members of the House and there's 4 Republicans. The Republicans aren't 1/3.
No, that's why I want people to realize that, hey, this looks pretty good, 2/3, but it's like we're not at a place where we can say that we can make it unless
No, the
it is an
Democrats
issue.
could want the governor not to go forward.
And I think that there probably are some Democrats that feel that way. And I think that we need to give a shout out to those Democratic legislators who do fight for some of this stuff. So, they exist and we need to know about them. But I'll tell you, you mentioned that the legislative session, we're getting really close to the legislative session being closed, but we also have the opportunity to talk to you about whether or not you should be running for public office. And on the 28th, and it's only
Of
a couple
April.
days, it's only a couple days away, Jim. We're going to be doing this wonderful Dog and Pony show out at One Love at 6:30 on April 28th. We want to make sure that you come out and meet us. Please pull us aside and tell us, hey, we watched the show. In fact, if you're watching on YouTube right now, why don't you like and share this video and make a comment? And we'd love to hear from you. I get comments all the time, not on YouTube, but I get emails and phone calls from our viewers and listeners all the time. So we want to make sure
I see people from time to time that I don't even know who they are. And they come up to me and said, I really like your show. I really like your show. One person even said, how come you're not on Call-O anymore?
Yeah, it's really interesting. There's a lot of people. In fact, I want to say hi, hello, aloha to Teresa who called. I told her I was going to give her a shout out because she really said that the show means a lot to her.
Oh, good.
And she really enjoys watching us. And so, Teresa, thank you for reaching out. And if you're if you're in the community and you think there's an issue that Jim and I should talk about, then comment. Send me an email at eva@hawaiifamilyforum.org or jim@jameshochberglaw.com and tell us what you're thinking out there. We want to hear from you. It's really important. Jim and I try very hard to talk about things that matter to you and not just to us, because there's a lot of stuff that matter to Jim and I that would probably bore all of you to death.
Do you know the SNL cowbell skit?
Oh, I love the cowbells. Need more cowbell. I need more cowbell. I have
That
a fever.
matters to us.
I have a fever. And there's only, okay.
All right. So we got to go, but thanks for watching. Aloha.
Make sure that you stick around. And again, share this video, and we will see and talk with all of you next week. Mahalo, everybody.
Aloha.